Welcome back to another edition of Cover One, the Film Room. I'm your host, Eric Turner. Today, I have a special guest, first time joining us in the film room, Mr. Mark Gaughan from the Buffalo News. What's going on, Mark?
Hey, Eric. Thank you so much for having me. Really a pleasure for me. I love the work you do, and so glad to be here.
No, likewise, man. I followed you, obviously, for many years with the Buffalo News. You know, you do a lot of the same stuff that I love to talk about, and that's why I wanted to bring you in today, talk some X's and O's, talk some football, specifically talking about the draft. And today we're going to start with Michael Pittman Jr. So I want to get your overall thoughts, you know, if some good, some bad, what, stood out to you on his film. Obviously, he's a bigger receiver, 6'4", 223 pounds. His hands were 9 1/4, according to playerprofiler.com. So what are some strengths and weaknesses maybe that Pittman could bring to a team like the Buffalo Bills?
Well, I like him as one of numerous considerations for the Bills at number 54. He brings an element that the Bills don't have. The long, outstanding, really great hands. McDermott says the obvious a lot of times when he's talking about receivers, where you got to be able to catch the ball. I mean, his catchability is just exceptional. It's his ball skills, I think, are his elite. He's got elite. That's the ability that really makes him elite. His ball skills, outstanding hands, can lift his hand late and pluck it. I think he can be a friend to the quarterback. Catch radius, body control. I talked. I don't know what you think of this. I talked to a lot of Bills fans still have sort of anxiety aftershocks from the whole Kelvin Benjamin experience. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah.
And there's a lot of receivers in this draft later, especially third day, who are big, physical, no separation. So that's what you want to see. How easily can he get open? Is every single catchable ball a 50-50 ball, which is really what it was with Kelvin Benjamin at the end. And you don't want that. You know what I mean? So I think those strengths are really good. And, I think all the other thing to think about is matchups. I mean, and Brian Daboll is so obsessed, like a good coordinator should be, about matchups. And I think, again, I'm not saying that they probably going to have a lot of good options at 54, but adding a big receiver who can get open would be helpful matchup-wise in this offense, because, teams, you might say, well, rookie receiver, can he get off press? But, teams are putting their number one quarterback. We know where that guy's going, the number one corner. Stephon Gilmore, he's going to Diggs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no doubt about it.
I think there are going to be situations, if the Bills can add a receiver with size, there's going to be situations where Daboll can scheme him up against good matchups, against smaller corners, and that would be a benefit to this offense and to Josh Allen.
Yeah, and I'm sure you agree. This offense has speedy receivers. This offense has guys that can separate with route running, but outside of Duke Williams, who is still kind of an unknown, he had flashes last year as that big target, high point type guy, but he's also a guy that dropped probably the most important pass of his entire season last year. So we don't know where he's at, but so they don't really have that big bodied, type like Michael Pittman Jr. would bring. And he's a very polished route runner. I like his footwork, especially on those in-breaking routes. He knows how to set up corners and break inside and get that leverage inside across the middle. And of course, that big frame comes in hand when he's doing that across the middle of the field. And, I really like what you said about his body control in his hands, because he's very reliable. Last year, he had a 1.8% drop percentage. That was 2 drops on 113 catchable targets. And for his career, Mark, 5 drops on 176 targets. I mean, that's the type of receiver you want for your quarterback, especially a guy like Josh Allen. And you're talking about matchups. Yes, the Bills would like to have their seam buster, like those cover 3 seam busters. When defenses want to stack the box, play low cover 3 on early downs, and they want Josh Allen to hit it down the seam like Brady used to hit Gronk and his tight ends down the seam, Michael Pittman can do that. He can jump into the slot, be that seam buster, along with, Dawson Knox, Tyler Kroft, and as I mentioned, Duke Williams at times. So having that guy that can run down the seam and make catches in traffic is something that, Josh Allen would definitely benefit from, because he's not really one to pull the trigger on those type of throws unless he really trusts a guy. And Cole Beasley and the other Smurfs that they have in the wide receiver room right now aren't those types. So Michael Pittman Jr., I think, would add that type of big, that size down the seam, that size over the middle, that reliability. And he's also quite polished. He's played in a lot of games at USC, and he's very QB friendly, and he knows how to make eye contact with his quarterback, show his numbers, and find just little voids in the zone, something that I think this year you're going to see a little more of when we talk about Josh Allen and how teams are going to defend him, because they played a lot of man, a lot of cover one versus him last year, forced him to throw deep up and over guys, and I think that's going to change a little bit this year with some of the additions that they have so far in this offseason, specifically Stephon Diggs. And then talking about the draft. So is there anything that stood out to you as far as, maybe some of the negatives real quick?
Well, I mean, I think you could say this for almost every single receiver coming into the draft. Press, how much real press coverage do you see of the guy? And, especially these guys with good offenses. I mean, defenses are just given cushion. However, you see some, obviously he's going to grow. He's got to grow. And a rookie receiver has, rookies take some time. But I think we see some elements here. He's got quicker feet off the line than you see from some real big guys, and his ability to adjust to the ball in the air. I mean, I think of some big receivers are real projects. Not to go way back, but James Hardy, and I mean, he didn't work out, but right. He didn't. James had unbelievable physical ability, but he didn't adjust to the ball. Right. Nothing like that. And a lot of big guys don't. They're big, but I mean, Pittman really makes full use of his catch radius, so that's really good. And then the other thing is you want to be able to uncover a little, separate, and I like the little signs of quick feet that we see him coming off the line of scrimmage.
No, I agree. And, the whole press thing, we talked about it off air. I mean, with the talent that's on these Power 5 type teams, it's just hard, especially when you have a good quarterback. It's hard for teams to press these guys. They want to, maximize some of the space on the defensive side, so they kind of back off. There's a lot of cushion. So one thing I mentioned off air that, I worried about prior to the Senior Bowl, my worries have been tempered, was that long speed that you kind of alluded to. And I mean, I think we've seen, that he is able to maximize his speed for his size. He's a pretty good athlete. And I think that was kind of undervalued, maybe prior to the Senior Bowl. That's what I went through. But then once you saw the combine and saw him run a little bit, you could tell that he is an athlete. And again, well polished from top to bottom, a lot of playing time, got the pedigree and everything. But without further ado, man, let's jump into the film room, because I picked a few plays that, it really targets him down the field. He's for a big guy, you don't expect him to have that long speed, as I just mentioned, but he does some little things throughout the route stem, throughout the, at the top of the catch, and of course the high point, which is what we're going to talk about a lot in this breakdown. And it's stuff that we liked on film. So I pulled some of those clips. So let's jump into the film room.
Okay.
All right, Mark. First play, we have Pittman from the slot, and it's something that USC used with him a lot. They put him in the slot. This is a few years ago against Ohio State, and you see a slot fade, charted here, and you have a stop route from the number one receiver on the bottom of the screen. And this Hoss concept in the Bills playbook is, they run it so much. Usually when they're in their empty set, they have three receivers on one side, and then they'll run this Hoss concept, usually with the running back to the bottom of the screen. And they like to target that fade. We saw Dawson Knox run it a bunch of times. He had that one big catch along the sideline, I believe, against Patrick Chung. I think that was a Hoss concept. They ran it a bunch of times against the Bengals as well, and he had success. But I really wanted to pull this clip because you see on the snap, Pittman Jr. is matched up versus Damon Arnette. This guy is considered, some people have him as a day one target corner, and some of them, day two. I have him in day two, usually right around the second round. And I want you to watch this release on the snap. You see him stab inside right there, reworks that stem. And this is important because one of Damon Arnette's biggest knocks is his arm length. And you see that little jab created just enough separation because Arnette mirrors that inside step, and then now he doesn't have the arm length to get a piece of Pittman to take speed off of that release. And when you have a big guy like that, I talked about it earlier at the top, that he knows how to maximize his speed at his size. And it's just little plays like that, little releases that allow him to separate early and then maintain that separation through the top. And you see it's just a heck of a throw and catch by Pittman at the top. So, Mark, what do you like about this play? And do you see Pittman as someone that the Bills could really use in the slot?
Well, I mean, I love that you picked this clip because it shows two different elements here, the jab step and the quick change of direction. So many big wideouts take yards to build up speed, you know? And he's playing an NFL cornerback here. And so that release was really good, selling the inside and getting quick separation. And then the catch is ridiculous, going over the outside shoulder. He makes it look so easy.
So easy.
I mean, and he's got the safety bearing down on him. Actually, the ball, considering where the safety was, it was a good throw good
Darnold,
placement by Darnold. But I mean, he makes Darnold look good here, and this is what you want: a big receiver who can make his quarterback look good. I mean, that's a great catch way over the outside shoulder. I mean, great adjustment to the air and the ball. To the ball in the air. Yeah, I mean, that's an impressive play right there. And again, that's where you're talking about matchups where Pittman, is going to be he's going to, if they have a good receiver in that spot, he's going to be getting some favorable matchups. You got to believe, you know what I mean? Because they got to cover Diggs. They got to get somebody good with quicks on the inside to cover Beasley. And you got to respect John Brown too. So, I mean, he's going to get if they have another guy, he's got to be getting the more favorable matchups.
Yeah. And, we always talk about separation. A lot of big guys have trouble separating. Okay. This is a play he actually separated quite well right from the release. And he maintained some of that separation and got that corner out of phase quite quickly. But he also separates, even if this corner is in his hip. You mentioned where that throw is and how he is adjusting and kind of fading away towards the sideline here. That is creating separation too. So he not only created vertical separation up the field, but he created horizontal separation, as you mentioned, away from this deep safety, and then the soft hands and concentration to bring it in at the top of the route there. I mean, this is exactly what you want from your big guy, a guy that can stretch down the seam and then show separation late, even if there is a guy in his pocket, and use the soft hands to bring it in. Just a great play from top to bottom. And again, it's something we're going to talk about, separation for a big guy as we roll through this film.
They're reacting to the ball late in the air.
Yeah.
I mean, you either got it or you don't, I mean, that's hard to develop.
Totally agree. And the soft hands, I mean, this is, again, NFL competition, big game. This is what you want to see from, a receiver that you take on day two sometime. You want to have a dimension that, okay, he's got this. This is what we can always rely on him. We can work every other trait up to match that level. And you can see the body control on this play, that hand-eye coordination and reliability down the field by Pittman Jr. All right, Mark, the next play is against Utah. He had a decent game against them. This is a 3rd and 5 situation. I want you guys to remember he was super reliable on third downs. He had 0 drops on, I believe, 26 targets on third down last year. And it's a similar concept, all right? So it's a Haas concept, a slot fade. But you see the corner is on the line of scrimmage. He's trying to press him. And Pittman is on the line of scrimmage. See, this is what's nice about having a big wide receiver, especially one that has a little more athleticism than what we're used to, especially coming out of the Pac-12. He can be on the line of scrimmage. And if guys want to press him, he has that lateral ability to avoid a press, or he has the hand usage to clear his frame. On this play, the Utah defender does not try to get a piece of him. So he's just going to try to open up and mirror him. It's pretty obvious route concept. Slot fade. He's going to run down the numbers and throw that defender by. But again, I want to stress how good of body control he shows on this play, because this is one of those, it's something that we talked about, Mark, is that first year that Josh Allen was in Buffalo and he got to play a lot. He had Kelvin Benjamin. First day of camp, they were throwing these 50-50 balls, slot fades to Benjamin, and I swear they barely could connect on these plays. There's part of the reason why Josh has such a bad completion percentage during the year, because this was such a base part of their offense with those big receivers. That was like Bean's plan initially, and McDermott's plan initially is to use those big receivers and to help the inaccuracy of Josh Allen. But they would throw a lot of these back shoulders, the 50-50 ball, slot fades. And you see here to Pittman, but they didn't have guys that could separate late. Again, this guy's in his hip pocket, and you see Pittman, he's absorbing that guy that's in phase, he's in his pocket, but then at the very last second, he executes a push by and then rotates his body to his back shoulder, catches it with his hands. But, sometimes we see on Sundays, these back shoulder throws, the guy just wants to catch it. This is an explosive play down the field. He wants to catch it and he'll just fall down. Well, no. Pittman Jr. has the body control to catch it, get himself into a running position, and then gain a couple yards after the catch there. So give me your thoughts on this play. Again, it's another slot fade, but I think you can see a little bit more of the competitiveness at the top of the route, his ability to push by, and of course that body control that you love.
Yeah, I mean he's got a free release here, but again, you mentioned his lateral agility. He probably was getting off that. He was getting off the line here, and I like his body. When you talk about his body control, he's in full stride here up until about the 47, and he's able to slam the brakes on without overselling it or tipping it off, and again makes it look easy, makes this catch look easy. So I mean, they used him as a senior, or this past season in 2019, he was pretty much the X a lot of the time.
Yes,
but he moved around. He does have versatility. He played in the Y and the Z a lot more in his the previous 2 years at USC. So that that's a good thing you like. Again, ability to take advantage of matchups, and he makes these big high point catches look easy.
I mean, and this is, everyone says they're 50-50 balls, receiver, you ask a receiver, no, this is an 80-20 ball. Again, from the slot, as you mentioned, so he does offer a little versatility. According to Sports Info Solutions, over the last 2 years, he was using the slot 18% of the time, but in 2019, it only occurred 11% of the time, and the prior year was 27%. So they used him, like you said, a little more outside this past season, but when you have a big guy like that can stretch down the field and make these easy, these type of, low risk type throws. Yes, they're low percentage throws, but they're low risk for Josh Allen, where he's, if he throws it properly to the outside shoulder, the back shoulder, it's not going to be intercepted, especially a guy, like I said, that's reliable like Pittman Jr. And you just see this time and time again on his film, and he just attacks the ball. It's just so nice. And this is a nice soft throw to him, but he's so good at getting it at its high point, and as I said, bringing it in and then putting his body in position to do something after the catch. Next play, it's a 2nd and 3 situation. They're in the second quarter. They're pretty much in the 2-minute drill now, and they're up 7 points. You see Michael Pittman Jr. to the bottom of the screen here, and the corner's looking like he's going to press. He's kind of in a soft press, but Pittman Jr. takes an inside release, and you see on that release, his pace is not 100%. He's not trying to get the top speed immediately. You see him kind of just slow play it off the bat, gets that corner to open. That corner takes outside leverage. And now this is where you want to see your big guy not just blow by him, but you want to see him stack that defender. And that's exactly what he does. Right around the 37-yard line, you're going to see him. He's even with the cornerback right now. If you're even, you're leaving. But then he uses his hands. He uses all the tools in his toolbox to separate. You see him right there, push off, and then attack the ball down the field. Here comes the safety over the top, and he just wants it more, right, Mark? I mean, he wants it more. He high points it and makes an incredible catch. So what about this play do you really like from Pittman Jr.? Obviously, a little different here. It's a 3-by-1 set on the line of scrimmage as the X here. And what do you like about this play from the top?
Well, again, a lot of the big receivers in this draft class take long build-up time, and you saw him, like you mentioned, turn on the jets and quick feet and stack the cornerback. The other thing is, I mean, the way he catches the ball, his good hands here. He catches the back half of the ball as it's going up, so it's kind of a late hands catch. And this is you talk about NFL plays. I mean, catching in traffic with a safety right bearing down on your neck, that's going to happen in the NFL all the time. And so those are great hands and a great catch in between two defenders. That's what a big receiver has to do in the NFL, because you're going to have that safety in pretty good position there.
Every time, yeah. With the speed of the NFL, even if it's a single high look, there's a good chance that safety is getting over the top to help out on that corner. His speed worried me a few months back, but you can see he does every little thing that he can to maximize that. As you said, he got an inside release. Okay, if you're going to give me an inside release, get to top speed, but also use your hands to separate. And you see him push off right there. You know, he does that so often on his film. He's able to separate using his hands. He doesn't let guys get onto his frame. He always clears his frame. We saw it all week at the Senior Bowl. And then again, he goes from full speed. Now he's tracking the ball. He's trying to, find the proper speed, throttle down and go up and get the ball. He does that, as you said, late hands and just the fingertip strength on this play. I mean, look at that. I mean, that's incredible body control, hand-eye. I mean, you get a little bit of everything on this play against Colorado, and it's just an impressive rep from the big wide receiver.
And again, making his quarterback look good there, helping his quarterback there.
Exactly. You always want to be QB friendly. You always want that quarterback to be right. He's that type of wide receiver. All right, this was a play against Utah. He went off against the Utah defense, and we got to keep in mind, the Utah defense, they're no slouches. I mean, they're going to have several guys drafted high in this NFL draft this coming year, and Pittman's to the top of the screen. They have two receivers at the bottom. They got a little tight end or H-back in the backfield. And what they're going to do on the snap, you're going to see Pittman kind of bend that route to the middle of the field as Utah kind of runs like a little bracket coverage. So you see the corner opens up, it's kind of bail technique here. And eventually, after this play fake by the quarterback to the running back, you're going to see him get to the top of the drop. Okay, so right now, you have the corner looking in the backfield at the quarterback, trying to get an idea that, when he's at the top of the drop, when that ball is going to be released. You obviously also have that safety with his eyes in the backfield. So I want you to watch from the tight camera angle what Pittman does on this route, because he kind of bends it inside to make it look like, hey, maybe this is a 3 or 5 step drop. I'm going to run some type of in-breaking route, maybe some kind of play to the post to make them think that they're going to be running some type of in-breaking route. But he eventually bends it back outside, and that right there really puts his safety, Blackman, in a bind here. And now, again, this is a guy that's going to be drafted quite high in this NFL draft. There's a little hiccup there in his transition, and now that allows Pittman to not only stack the corner, but create separation horizontally away from that steep safety. But the safety makes up some good ground, and he's right there at the catch point. And, of course, Pittman Jr. just outjumps him and makes a heck of a play to break free and get into the end zone. So, Mark, tell me what you like about this play from Pittman Jr. This is, again, one of his explosive plays, and it's something that I don't think's talked about enough in his game.
Yeah, like you mentioned, he stacks. He really takes the cornerback out of the play. He stacks him, gets him on his back, and this concentration really is what stands out. I mean, he is unfazed by defenders sprinting in his face, coming at him. It's just a great ball concentration and athleticism to, again, make this play look easy. You just get the ball near him as a quarterback, and he can come down with it. Huge catch radius, great concentration. I mean, and a lot of this is, it's natural, gifted. It's something you don't teach. This way to be just a rebounding eraser. But this wasn't just like a 50-50 rebounding big guy play. Like you mentioned, all the nuanced way he broke to the outside, gave himself a little bit more room. And, he's the son of a former, legit NFL player, Michael Pittman. Yeah. He's got real gifts.
Yeah, totally. And, he's, again, I think you put on his film and he just always flashes, whether it's on a critical down or when, just the quarterback needs a play and he throws it up here like this and just trusts him. That's the type of blanket you want for a guy like Josh Allen. Again, we talk about some of his inaccurate passes, just misplaced passes. I mean, if you get it in the area code of Pittman Jr., somehow he always ends up gets it. And then again, he can make some explosive plays, something that he did quite a bit at USC. And I think he'd be a really nice element to the Bills offense. I'm not sure what you think about that. If we talk specifically about his role on the Bills, with this, the way this offseason has been, do you think he could immediately carve out a niche in Brian Daboll's offense?
I do. I mean, again, I think you really need to be realistic about rookie contributions at receiver, because historically, even first rounders it takes some time with most of them. Obviously, there's some Julio Jones and AJ Greens that are the exceptions. But I mean, and I think that is a big factor in why Brandon Beane pulled the trigger on Stephon Diggs, because I would say he decided he wasn't getting the top 3 wideouts. And the guys after that weren't going to be necessarily ready to be a number 1 wideout out of the gate. But the Bills, given what they have, they wouldn't need a Michael Pittman to come in and he'd have time to carve out a niche. And then they could see as he develops, okay, maybe this guy can be a starter who, when John Brown's contract runs out, could fill those shoes. But like right now, matchup wise, he would give Brian Dable an element against certain teams. You think of teams with big corners, Tennessee, they're not on the schedule this year in the regular season, but teams with big corners, they're not all going to be able, a guy like Pittman would get the more favorable matchups because the Brown, Beasley, Diggs are going to command the amount of respect. They can't be ignored.
Yeah, and I know Beasley to a certain extent, he can't really get deep, but obviously Diggs and Brown, they can stretch the field. Beasley can to a certain extent, more of that intermediate and underneath guy. But a guy like Pittman, I think, could easily carve out a role immediately as a possession type guy, a guy that, again, can throw in the slot, run some of those quasi-tight end routes. Mm-hmm. Maybe they don't, add a tight end. A lot of people have been saying we need to add some more tight ends, only having Dawson Knox, Tyler Kroft, and those guys. I know a lot of people want a tight end, but a guy like
I don't see it. Yeah.
No, and they obviously didn't really address it. And so, one of the biggest, improvements that we saw from Josh Allen last year was in that 10 to 12 yard, 10 to 20 yard range, the intermediate area. And I think that's where you can expect Pittman to run those digs, those in-breaking routes, and be that possession type guy here. We're looking at some of Sports Info Solutions stats from just a normal dig route at the college level. And you can see Michael Pittman's right up there with some of the best. He's been targeted several times, 15 times. He's caught 10 for 119 yards and 3 touchdowns. So he's a guy that can win in that intermediate area. I think he's that big frame, quasi tight end that I think Josh Allen would really like. And when you have guys that are running those in-breaking routes, running those routes over the middle, whether it's on like a snag or spot concept or short, drag across the middle and then drive concept, stuff like that, I think Pittman could be that quasi tight end type to kind of work the middle of the field and make things easier when they're, in 11 personnel or whatnot, if they decide to do 4 receivers, which I don't think we'll see too often, based on the last couple of years. But I think he can carve out that niche initially as that short and intermediate route guy, but also a guy that can obviously stretch the field and win those 50-50 situations. And then finally, he does offer some special teams abilities, right?
Yeah, this is something you mentioned to me off air, but absolutely. I talked to him. You might have talked to him at the Senior Bowl, but I talked to him for like 15 minutes at the Senior Bowl, and he said he was on every special teams, not his senior year, or not this past 2019, He wasn't, but he didn't do a lot of special teams. But he said before this year, he did every special teams except field goals. So he has experience there. I think, obviously that's something you've got to have in that role. That's why Robert Foster didn't get on the field. And he takes pride in that. And he's done a fair amount earlier in his USC career. I also like the fact, again, you can't draw to make too many conclusions, but from a 15-minute discussion with him, but he's from USC. His dad was an NFL player, but he didn't give off this big timer air. Right. I don't know if you talked to him at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
So I like that. He made a good impression.
No, he made a great impression on me. I'll go ahead and link the interview I had with him for both of our interviews. But what I asked him at the podium was, I gave him a situation and asked him what he studied on a film going into a game and what he looks for against the opposing cornerback. And his answer was just awesome.
So the first thing that I'm looking for is if he is a lateral corner or if he's a shuffle corner. So which means like if his first step is going to be here or like if he's going to shuffle up and go back. Because like that's kind of the two prominent techniques that like college.
That to me reeked of someone that has obviously been trained. He's got the pedigree,
Yes.
but who understands his opponent, his adversary, and that on top of everything that he brings on the field, on top of all the things he brings off the field, to me, that football IQ is, in that short amount of time, like you said, that impression is lasting to me and something I'll always remember because that was one of the smarter answers I had from a player at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, he said he worked a lot with Curtis Conway, the former USC great, who had a really good career with the Bears, and he's been working a ton with him.
Totally. So overall, where would you say the Bills would have to target this guy?
Yeah, I mean, I think if they're going to get him, they got to get him at 54. So he's not going to be there by the third round. There's a chance he could go before 54, but he may well be there at 54. And it's just a question of it's really hard to predict. How does the board fall? Who else is there? What is there a run on before 54? But I think he is a really viable option at 54.
I think so too. I have a second round grade on him, and I know this is a deep wide receiver class, but he obviously has a lot of boxes that he can check, with the type of receiver that he is. And he seems like the type that is still trending upwards, but has a high floor. So I think he's sort of, I don't want to say safe because that kind of has a negative connotation, but I think he is a safe player with that high floor, his pedigree, his work habits, and what he would bring to the offense. I mean, I know people can argue that it's a deep draft and you could probably get similar guys with similar traits later, but I do have a second round grade with him. I think you agree he's going to probably go in that area. But no, this was a fun breakdown. Stand by for part 2 of this breakdown, guys. We're going to take a look at Utah's running back, Zach Moss.